Welcome, dear listener. You've done enough for today. You've carried the weight of hours and thoughts, and you are safe now. Nothing is asked of you here. Nothing but rest and the quiet comfort of story. Tonight I'm going to tell you one of the greatest love stories ever whispered through the ages. The story of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh and queen of Egypt, and the man who defied Rome for her, Marc Antony. Before you settle in, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel and comment where you're tuning in from. The world is a lot smaller when we are all connected by love. Let us begin. It's 41 BCE, on the sun-soaked edge of the Mediterranean. A city stands, shimmering like a jewel set in the crown of the ancient world. Alexandria, the center of learning and civilization, home to the great library and the museum, where the knowledge of centuries is collected, studied, and guarded by the brightest minds of the ancient world. The heart of Egypt, the beating pulse of a kingdom older than Rome itself, a place of towering temples, golden palaces, and marble halls where poets and scholars whisper the secrets of the world. And at its center rules the last pharaoh and queen of Egypt. Her name is Cleopatra. History remembers her beauty, but those who knew her spoke of something far more powerful. It was not just her face or form, but the way she moved, the way she spoke, her voice like music, her presence like a spell. She could hold a room with nothing but a glance, and command loyalty with nothing but a word. Brilliant, ruthless, fearless, the final heir to a dynasty founded by one of Alexander the Great's own generals, nearly 3 centuries before. Fluent in many languages, trained in philosophy and statecraft, she rules not by blood alone, but by wit, strategy, and unshakable courage. She has already done the unthinkable, capturing the heart of Julius Caesar, Rome's greatest general, securing her throne when all had seemed lost. Through Caesar, she held Egypt's independence in her hands, but that victory did not last. Caesar is gone now, assassinated by men who feared his power, and Rome is tearing itself apart. 2 men remain in a deadly struggle for control. One is Marc Antony, Caesar's closest friend in life, his most loyal general, the man who had stood by Caesar on every battlefield and carried out his will for years. The other, Octavian, cold, methodical, patient, ruthlessly determined to bring Egypt and all its power under his control. He plays the long game, calculating every move like a man who trusts no one and plans to outlast them all. His motive is simple: to seize Egypt, the richest prize in the Mediterranean, and use its wealth to fuel his rise as the true master of Rome. Because Egypt is more than a kingdom, it is the key to Rome's future, and Cleopatra holds that key in her hands. Though both men claim to fight for Caesar's legacy, they are rivals, each determined to rule an empire that has no room for them both. Both men need Egypt's wealth, its grain, its ships, but more than that, they need Cleopatra. To one, she is a threat. To the other, an irresistible temptation. Octavian wants her silenced, but Antony wants her beside him, and when he calls for her, when he summons the Queen of Egypt to stand before him, Cleopatra knows exactly what she must do. She will not send envoys, she will not send tribute, she will go herself. And when she does, She will remind Rome that she has already conquered one empire. And now, with all of Rome watching, she is about to risk everything to do it again. It is a warm morning on the Cydnus River, the air thick with the scent of reeds and flowering trees as Cleopatra prepares her royal barge. Not just any ship, but a floating palace, a temple of gold and purple. Its sails shimmer with the richest silk, dyed in the colors of kings and gods. Silver oars dip into the water in perfect rhythm, moving the great vessel not with haste, but with the slow, deliberate grace of a goddess arriving to claim her place in history. Incense drifts through the air, sandalwood, cinnamon, frankincense. Soft music rises from hidden harps and flutes, floating on the breeze like the Nile's own song. And there she reclines beneath a golden canopy, Cleopatra. Her dark hair gleams like obsidian. Her skin is brushed with fragrant oils. Her robes are light as air itself. She does not come dressed as a ruler, but as the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Her arrival is no accident. It is theater. It is power. It is a vision Antony will never forget. When her barge reaches the shores of Tarsus, the people gather in breathless silence, and standing among them, waiting, is Antony. The man who has faced 1,000 enemies now stands frozen, not by fear, but by wonder. She neither bows nor speaks first. She simply holds his gaze and smiles. And in that moment, Antony knows. This is no simple meeting. This is the beginning of something that will outlive them both. As the sun slips beneath the horizon and the day gives way to night, Cleopatra sends for Antony once more. That night, beneath the hush of twilight, Cleopatra welcomes Marc Antony aboard her barge once again. But this time, there are no crowds, no staged display, only silence and something unspoken between them. Only two people, drawn together by something neither can yet explain. Golden lanterns sway in the warm evening breeze, their soft light reflecting on the dark waters. The air is rich with the scent of roasted figs, honeyed almonds, and spices prepared by Cleopatra's own chefs. The feast is not held in a grand hall, but beneath the open sky. Silk cushions and low tables wait on the deck, so they may recline beneath the stars. Antony arrives, still draped in his Roman robes, but something has shifted. In his eyes, there is a flicker of curiosity, a spark he has not felt in years. Cleopatra rises to greet him, her every movement fluid, as if she were part of the river itself. She extends her hand, not as a queen commanding a general, but as a woman inviting a man to something far more dangerous than politics. They dine slowly, and they speak, not of war or alliances, but of ideas, of philosophy, of fate and choice. She tells him of Egypt's ancient gods, of the Nile's sacred rhythm, of the stars and the stories they carry. And Antony listens, not as a general, but as a man enchanted by the music of her voice. She asks him of Rome, not the Rome of politics, but the Rome of his heart, what it felt like to stand beside Caesar, to carry the loyalty of legions, to bear the weight of a world's expectation. And Antony, who has spent a lifetime wearing armor, on his body and on his heart, finds himself speaking truths he never thought he would share. Of loyalty, of loneliness, of power, and what it costs. The night deepens. The river whispers around them. And though no one else knows it yet, what begins here will change the fate of empires. Not with the clash of armies, but with the quiet joining of two hearts beneath a sky full of stars. It is late summer on the Cydnus, and the days after their meeting pass quickly, too quickly for either to let go. Antony lingers by Cleopatra's side, drawn deeper into her world with every quiet meal, every walk along the water's edge. But Alexandria calls her home. Her people wait. And though duty pulls at Antony, something else, something unspoken, pulls harder. He follows her. They sail south across the Mediterranean, the wind at their backs. Cleopatra stands at the prow, telling stories of her gods, her ancestors, and the legacy of the Ptolemies, rulers who had claimed Egypt since the time of Alexander the Great. She speaks of a kingdom older than Rome itself, a land the world has long desired but never truly claimed. And as the ship cuts through the waves, Antony watches, not the sea, but her. When they reach Alexandria, the city feels alive. Sunlight burns on stone and sea. The lighthouse towers over the harbor like a sentinel standing watch. She leads him through gardens heavy with ripening fruit, through halls filled with the quiet breath of ancient knowledge. And somewhere in the spaces between them, without words, without promise, she invites him to stay. And he does. Days blur into nights. Alexandria becomes more than a city. It becomes something they share, something neither is ready to leave. Together, they gather poets and musicians, fill their nights with laughter and wine. They call themselves the inimitable livers, living each day as if the world belongs to them alone. They feast beneath painted ceilings, wager on riddles, and wander the streets in disguise. Cleopatra surprises him at every turn, testing his wit, daring him to keep up. Once, she dissolves a priceless pearl in vinegar and drinks it with a smile, proving she can turn even a jest into legend. But the games are only part of the story. In the quiet hours they speak of more, of legacy, of power, of a future far from Rome's grasp. Cleopatra dreams of a dynasty, of children who will rule both East and West. And Antony, he begins to wonder if his future lies not in Rome, but here, in Alexandria, beside the woman who has already changed the course of his life. It is now winter, and Alexandria holds them in its spell. While Rome whispers of betrayal, they live as if time belongs to them alone. Two rulers, two lovers, daring the world to wait. They make no secret of what they have become. Lovers, bound by something neither dares to name. Together they rule over a season of spectacle and pleasure, their entanglement no longer whispered, but witnessed by all who gather at their side. At the heart of it all stands the inimitable livers, a name they give themselves, meaning those who live in a way no one else can match. A circle of poets, scholars, soldiers, and friends who join them each night to celebrate the art of living without limit, a court of revelry and ambition, of laughter and seduction. And as the weeks turn to months, the line between power and passion blurs, until Egypt and Rome, queen and general, city and man, seem bound by something far deeper than alliance alone. Across the sea, Rome waits, Octavian waits, and rumors begin to spread. But even Alexandria cannot keep Rome at bay forever. Not yet. As the months turn to years, their bond deepens, and from that bond, new life begins. Cleopatra bears Antony twins, a boy and a girl. All of Alexandria celebrates. Bells ring from the temple towers, and poets fill the streets with songs of a future where Egypt and Rome might be united not by conquest, but by love. The boy is named Alexander Helios, named for the sun, whose light and power touches every corner of the earth. The girl, Cleopatra Selene, named for the moon, whose glow watches over lovers and dreamers alike. And later, a third child is born, a son they name Ptolemy Philadelphus. Cleopatra holds them close in the quiet of the palace, tracing their tiny hands, whispering hopes for the world they will one day inherit. And Antony stands at her side, seeing in their small hands a future he never dared imagine. In those moments, they are not rulers, warriors, or legends. They are simply a mother and a father, holding on to something fragile and rare beneath Alexandria's sun. But even as they dream of the future, Rome begins to turn against them. To Octavian, every moment they spend in Alexandria is a provocation. Marc Antony, Rome's own general, ruling not from the Senate, but from a foreign court, beside Cleopatra, a foreign queen, building a dynasty that threatens to rival Rome itself. The longer they stay, the stronger they appear. And Octavian knows they must be stopped before Alexandria, not Rome, becomes the heart of empire. Octavian watches and waits. He gathers every whisper, every rumor, until the Senate itself hums with accusation that Antony has given Roman lands to Cleopatra, that he has crowned her Queen of Kings, that he has promised their children kingdoms that belong to Rome. And when Antony stands before the people of Alexandria, naming Cleopatra and their children rulers of Egypt, Syria, Armenia, and Libya, Octavian sees his moment. He calls Antony a traitor. He calls Cleopatra a threat. They have built a throne beyond his reach, a future beyond his control. And as long as they rule from Alexandria, Octavian knows Rome will never truly be his. And with those words, he casts the first stone of a war that will shape the fate of empires. The winds shift once more across the Mediterranean. Colder now, sharper. Octavian moves like a storm gathering strength. Whispers are not enough. He needs something undeniable. So he takes Antony's private letters and reads them aloud before the Senate. He paints Cleopatra as a sorceress, a temptress who has bewitched Rome's great general and stolen him from his duty. And then he declares war, not on Antony alone, but on Cleopatra, on Egypt itself. It is a masterstroke. To strike at Antony risks dividing Rome, but to frame the war as Rome against a foreign queen, that unites the people. It stirs their fears. It justifies anything. In Alexandria, the news arrives like a blade to the heart. Cleopatra stands in the great hall of her palace, the light of the setting sun stretching long across the stone floor. "They come for me," she says quietly. "For Egypt." Antony takes her hand, steady as ever. "Then they come for us both," he answers. There is no turning back. Together, they gather their forces. Egypt controls one of the most powerful navies on earth, warships built for domination. Antony calls on every soldier who still stands with him. From Egypt, Syria, and the farthest reaches of the east, ships fill the harbors, Blades are sharpened, banners rise. Thousands answer the call. They know what waits for them on the horizon. Octavian's armies, Rome's fleet, and the battle that will decide who rules the world. The waters ahead turn dark and restless, as if the sea itself knows the world is about to change, and together they sail toward Actium, toward the final reckoning where the fate of two worlds is set to collide. The sea stretches wide before them, the waves churning under a pale September sky. It is 31 BCE. At the mouth of the Gulf of Actium, Antony and Cleopatra's fleet waits, 200 ships, their sails heavy with oil and pitch, their decks lined with soldiers from across the Eastern world. Cleopatra stands beside Antony on the flagship's deck, eyes fixed on the horizon. Across the water, Octavian's fleet waits, nearly twice their number. But Antony knows Octavian's strength lies not in courage, but in caution. For days, the two forces stare across the gulf, each daring the other to move first. And when the winds shift, when the signal comes, the sea erupts into chaos. Octavian's ships press the attack with brutal precision, their smaller, faster vessels outmaneuvering Antony's larger, heavier warships. Roman fireships break through the front lines, setting sails and decks ablaze. Flames spread across the water, turning the sea into a burning graveyard of broken timbers and drowning men. Antony loses half his fleet before the day is done. One by one, his eastern allies break and scatter, their loyalty crumbling in the smoke. His commanders, once sworn to his cause, begin to abandon the field, leaving Antony's great fleet shattered and alone. On the decks of his remaining ships, soldiers watch in disbelief as Antony turns to follow Cleopatra's retreating sails. Whispers of betrayal ripple through the ranks. Some call it madness, others call it the end. But Antony knows the truth. He has lost the future of Rome, but he refuses to lose her. His fleet is burning, his allies are gone, Rome's future is slipping through his hands. But when Cleopatra's sails vanish into the smoke, he knows what he must do. He turns, not for victory, but for her. Some say she runs. Others whisper that Antony, seeing her ship withdraw, makes his choice. Not for victory, but for her. For what is left to fight for, if it costs him the woman he loves? Together, they turn back toward Alexandria, knowing Octavian's legions will soon follow. They return not as victors, but as lovers, bound not by conquest, but by the simple truth that whatever comes next, they will face it as they always have, together and unafraid. Both knowing the walls of Alexandria cannot hold forever, and that Octavian is already on his way. Alexandria stands quiet when they return. The city that once sang with music and laughter feels heavier now. Its streets hushed, its people waiting for the storm they know is coming. Cleopatra retreats to the palace, gathering what remains of Egypt's power. Treasuries are emptied, defenses are prepared, ships are repaired, and readied for one last stand. Antony, once Rome's great general, walks the halls of the palace like a shadow of the man he once was. His armies are broken, his allies are gone, yet still he stays by her side. Together, they make their final preparations. They host their last feasts. They stand on the palace walls and watch the sea, knowing Octavian's fleet grows closer with every passing day. And when the news finally comes that Octavian has crossed into Egypt, the people of Alexandria, who had once cheered for their queen and her Roman consort, now brace for the siege they know is coming. Cleopatra, ever defiant, holds grand feasts in those final days, filling the palace with music and candlelight, as if daring time itself to forget them. Their most trusted friends gather close, drinking to memory, to love, to the fragile beauty of what they have created together. But beneath the laughter, there is a shadow neither dares name. Cleopatra, wise and watchful, made quiet plans to send her children to safety, hoping that beyond the reach of Rome, they might one day find freedom. She prepares her tomb, a resting place carved in gold and stone by the Nile's sacred edge, where she and Antony might lie side by side, untouched by time or empire. The gates are closing, the harbor is sealed. Beyond the palace walls, Octavian waits, ready to strike the final blow. Alexandria stands on the edge of its final breath, and in the heart of Alexandria, Cleopatra and Antony cling to each other, not as rulers, but as two souls who dare to dream of a love that might outlast the world itself. The morning the city has long feared arrives. The palace echoes with hurried footsteps and hushed voices. From the high towers, Antony watches as Octavian's forces cross the city's final defenses. His soldiers, outnumbered and outmatched, have fought bravely, but the end is certain now. A rumor spreads through the city that Cleopatra has died in her tomb. When Antony hears this news, it breaks whatever is left of his spirit. Cleopatra, they tell him, is gone. They say she has sealed herself inside her tomb, taking her treasures with her. Some whisper that she has set fire to her chamber, choosing to die before Octavian can take her captive. The words strip Antony of the last of his hope. She is locked away beyond reach, sealed in her tomb with her treasures. With Cleopatra gone, there is nothing left to fight for, nothing left to live for. He stands in silence for a long moment, the weight of loss sinking into his bones. Then, with trembling hands, he draws his sword, the same blade that has won countless battles for Rome, and presses it into his chest. But death does not come quickly. Fate is not finished with him yet. It has one more cruel trick to play. Cleopatra is not dead. The news has been a lie, a rumor carried by frightened messengers, a mistake born from chaos and fear. When word reaches her that Antony has fallen by his own hand, her servants rush to bring him to her. They carry his broken body to her tomb, hauling him up by ropes, for the doors are sealed with Cleopatra locked inside, hiding from capture. His life is slipping away, and in the soft flicker of lamplight, Cleopatra cradles him in her arms. She presses her lips to his forehead, her tears falling like rain upon his face. And though his breaths are shallow and his strength fading, Antony opens his eyes long enough to see her once more. "Do not be afraid," she whispers. "We shall not be long apart." And with one final breath, Antony slips into silence. Cleopatra holds him long after his heart has stilled. She rocks him gently, as though by holding him tightly enough, she might keep him from slipping beyond her reach. But in her heart, she knows she will follow him soon, just as she promised. The palace feels quieter than it has ever been. The golden walls that once echoed with music and laughter now stand silent, heavy with the weight of what is to come. Cleopatra withdraws to her private sanctuary, a chamber of gold and alabaster, its walls draped in the softest linens, the air thick with the sweet perfume of lotus and myrrh. She bathes in milk and honey, as her ancestors have done before her, her skin glowing beneath the flicker of 100 oil lamps. She dresses in her finest robes, silk woven with threads of gold, and places upon her brow the royal diadem, its serpent gleaming in the dim light, a reminder of the goddess she is said to embody. With every step toward the stone chamber she has prepared, Cleopatra carries not fear, not regret, but something quieter, something steadier, dignity. She lies upon a couch of woven reeds, spread with the softest cloth, and when the moment comes, she takes into her hands the small coiled asp, the sacred deadly serpent of her people, the guardian of the passage between life and eternity. Chosen not in fear, but in honor, the symbol of her ancestors, the way to meet her gods with dignity, bravery, and grace. Some say she speaks aloud in those final moments, that she whispers to Antony, promising they will soon be together again, where Rome can never touch them. Others say she smiles, a slow, knowing smile, as the serpent delivers its deadly kiss. And so, with her head held high, Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, meets her end, not as a captive, but as the Queen of Kings, just as Antony once declared her before the world. And with her passing, the kingdom of the Nile, its temples, its treasures, its myths, and its glory, falls into the hands of Rome. The last breath of Egypt's ancient world is lost to the sands of time. Octavian enters Alexandria not as a conqueror bathed in glory, but as a shadow passing through a city that had already begun to mourn. He claims Egypt for Rome. He takes the treasures of the palace, the gold, the jewels, the ships. But what he could not take, what no army could ever truly conquer, was their story. The people of Alexandria whisper it as they walk along the quiet banks of the Nile. They carry it in the markets, in the gardens, in the courtyards where musicians once played beneath the stars. The story of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, and of Marc Antony, the Roman general who had loved her beyond all reason. Their names bound forever, not by victory, but by something far greater, by love. And though centuries pass, their story still lingers, in the hush of the desert wind, in the soft ripple of the Nile's eternal song, in the quiet hearts of those who dare to love without fear. And tonight, dear listener, as you rest in the quiet of this moment, know that their story lives on in you. A story of passion, of loyalty, of dreams that dared to outlive empires. A love as endless as the river, boundless as the stars, and soft as the breath that carries you now into the quiet of your own forever.